What is Final Fantasy XVI? Final Fantasy XVI is the upcoming mainline release of the venerated Final Fantasy franchise, created by renowned Japanese developer Square Enix. Celebrating the franchise's 35th anniversary this year on December 18, 2022, the series has had consecutive blockbuster releases on many generations of consoles. From the original Nintendo with FF1 back in December 18, 1987, to the upcoming PlayStation 5 Final Fantasy XVI release on June 22, 2023. Each release is more ambitious than the last, while each game maintaining its own mythos, characters, and gameplay. Each is a standalone entry. There is no lore or continuity between them, besides throwbacks and references, and certain mascots like chocobos, moogles, or summons. More on what summons are later. Square Enix hasn't always been known by that name. When I was a kid, in the 90s and late 80s, they were known simply as Square. Square was formed in 1986 by Masashi Miyamoto. Originally a subdivision of his father's electric company, they broke off and formed their own company. In 1989, Square opened up its first Western branch of the company and named it Squaresoft. The Squaresoft name became world famous as the company turned out hit after hit, innovation after innovation. Their major competitor, Enix, took notice, and in 2003, the two companies merged into what is today known as Square Enix. However, Square had a rocky start in the 80s, which might be covered in a future video, but just know that Final Fantasy was a literal Final Fantasy of this fledgling video game developer. It was do or die, sink or swim, and they needed a hit. Luckily, Final Fantasy for the Famicom hit Japanese shelves in 1987 to major success. The series began as a turn-based RPG taking heavy inspiration from Dungeons & Dragons. Its spell system used the charge-based mana pool of D&D, and the feeling of exploration, class ascension, progression, and tactics is very similar to a typical D&D campaign. With each release, they iterated on the game mechanics and revolutionized their own game design. With Final Fantasy II, characters gained stats through actions in combat. Instead of leveling each character, they used a skill-based leveling system that would be popular in future games, like Elder Scrolls and RuneScape. In Final Fantasy III, the now revered job system was first introduced. No longer were characters confined to a single class or single role. Now they could freely swap between all available classes, or in the Final Fantasy world, these are known as jobs. The job system would be further enhanced in Final Fantasy V, where you can now learn equipable skills and abilities that can be used while assigned to another job. Personally, I'm a huge fan and sucker for any RPG that has a job system. I just absolutely love them. The amount of customization and theory crafting it promotes is extremely fun and addicting. Starting in Final Fantasy III, the series would make popular these summoned magical beings with varying names, depending on the release. These names include the most common and generic term, summons, or in other games they are known as eidolons, or eidolons, icons, primals, espers, aeons, or astrals. These summons mostly function as giga spells that convoke a being to obliterate the battlefield, inflict status ailments, or cause some sort of benefit to the player, such as healing or powerful buffs. These summoning animations are the highlight of each game's combat that features them, which is pretty much all of them after Final Fantasy III. During the PlayStation 1 era especially, these animations absolutely pushed the boundaries of what in-game 3D animation could do at the time. Today, Final Fantasy is known in the gaming sphere as a pioneer of graphics and presentation in video game development. In many Final Fantasy games, the supporting cast will include a summoner character that is central to the plot and themes of the game, and sometimes even share a spotlight with the main character, Final Fantasy X being the most prominent example of this. For the first time ever, these summoners are the main characters of Final Fantasy XVI. In this game, summoners are known as dominants. Our protagonist, Clive, through tragedy, becomes the dominant of Ifrit, one of the fire icons. In this world, like many Final Fantasy games, there are mother crystals that keep the world in balance. These are giant magical crystals that keep the planet in harmony, with a working biosphere, ecosystems, and geological processes. These mother crystals choose a person to become the dominant of their icon. What this truly means is up to interpretation for now. The mystery in this game is plenty, but one of them will focus on why there are two fire icons, Ifrit and Phoenix, instead of the usual one per element. From what we've seen so far of the trailers to Final Fantasy XVI, the story will begin during the year 860, with the Kingdom of Rosaria getting invaded by the neighboring country. The king's firstborn son, Clive, is 15 at this time. His younger brother, Joshua, is a dominant at Phoenix. In the trailers, we see parts of this invasion, where Joshua witnesses his chocobo getting maimed, and his father, or father figure, it's not confirmed yet who this man is, get beheaded by an invader dressed in local soldier uniform. Joshua is shocked and covered in blood. In a moment of desperate survival, his icon triggers, and he transforms into Phoenix. We see Ifrit show up somehow, and do battle with Phoenix for some reason, to the absolute astonishment of onlookers, with the outcome of this battle not known as of yet. This game looks to be filled to the brim with drama, intrigue, and bloody action. It is an action RPG with the lead combat director from Devil May Cry 5 in charge of the combat, promising deep gameplay with cinematic action. It's been confirmed by the developers that the length of the main story will be about 40 hours long, and the game's length would be at least double that if one decides to complete all the side content and achievements. This is the first Final Fantasy game to have its script initially recorded in English, and also have its lip syncing first done in English. The voice actors so far have been incredible, and a lot of them are longtime Final Fantasy fans as well. The Final Fantasy series is known for its high fidelity graphics, excellent voice acting, and emotionally powerful music, which, in combination, makes for an incredibly immersive cinematic experience from the moment you see the title screen to the second the credits stop rolling. Final Fantasy XVI is being developed by a certain team at Square Enix that are slowly becoming icons themselves with certain gaming circles. They managed a Herculean feat 10 years ago and have been farming W's ever since. They managed to take a catastrophic failure of an MMO launch, so bad that it threatened bankruptcy for the entire company, and turn it around into one of the most successful MMOs of all time. This series has had some turbulent years with recent titles, and plenty of development challenges to overcome, and I'd love to get into those in future videos, if you're interested. Leave a comment down below if you would like to see any videos about the history of Square Enix, a biography of any of its developers, both old and new, like Naoki Yoshida or Hironobu Sakaguchi, or deep dives into the world of Final Fantasy XVI. Anything else that is Final Fantasy related or adjacent is also on the menu. Leave a like if this video was informative in any way. See you all next time, and have a good one.